Hello, my name is Rick Fujiwara, and I'm a shoe expert at SCHEELS. Today we're going to talk about boot fitting. Okay? What I recommend is when you go into your local SCHEELS, make sure you have your foot measured. And this needs to be a little bit more involved because I will always recommend that anyone who's trying on a work boot, hiking boot, or hunting boot has their foot measured unweighted and weighted. Why? Well, there's a process that's called elongation. When your foot is unweighted, it's going to be a certain length, and once you stand, it's going to elongate to a specific length. What you want to do is you want to minimize that motion in a boot, because when you think about it, if your foot is excessively elongating in a boot, it's going to cause your toes to tunnel forwards into the toe box, probably touch the front. It will also cause the volume of the shoe to change because your foot's going to flatten, and now you're not going to have any contact to the instep part of your foot. It also will cause your heel to grind back into the pocket of the boot. Have you ever noticed that your shoes have a little hole in the back on the interior? That could be a sign that you have severe elongation that's causing that grinding. Okay, you might need to have that analyzed. So measure unweighted and weighted. If it's more than a ½ inch elongation, then I recommend you're going to need to put some type of support system in your boot to minimize that motion. All inserts that are on the market will typically minimize elongation and cut that in half. For instance, if my foot measures 10, and then when I stand and it's 11, with my insert system, it's going to bring it about a 10½. Less motion, less chance of blistering, a much better, comfortable fit. Okay? When you're testing boots, make sure you're trying it on with the proper sock. Depending on what season you're going to be hunting, hiking, or working, make sure it's the right thickness for that activity. I also recommend trying on boots a little bit later in the day. If you can do it after 2 or 3, it's always best when the foot has reached its fullest width and length. Once you test the boots, there are certain aspects of the fit you have to pay attention to. Okay? I'm going to go through those right now. Lace them tautly, but not constrictively, and then walk on a flat terrain. And you need to pay attention to these parts of the fit. Number 1, I focus on heel lock. The heel in a boot should slip no more than a ¼ inch. Once the flex point relaxes, that ¼ inch slip will go away, typically. So I would like a nice, snug heel lock. Number 2, I want the material on the inside of the boot to be pressed into the foot. This is the medial wall of the boot. And if this caves inwards, the foot is going to follow that cave, and that's not proper foot motion. So you want the medial part of the boot to be supportive and pressed into the foot. Number 3, make sure the flex point of the boot matches where your foot bends. Highly critical, because if your foot bends further than the boot will naturally bend, your foot will move to try to find it, and it's just going to create more friction. So the flex point has to be exact. 4, instep compatibility. Some people have high insteps, some people have very low volume feet. So this part of the boot has to match the foot. Looking at this shape, I would recommend this for somebody who has a high instep because of the volcanic shape. Match the boot to your foot shape. Another critical area of the fit should be in the toe box. There should be ample space in the toe box for you to wiggle your toes comfortably. Okay? Overall comfort. It needs to be overall comfortable for you on top of that. So I'm going to reiterate these processes for testing one more time. Heel lock, medial support, flex point compatibility, instep compatibility, and toe box room. Okay? If you're ever able to get your test done on an incline, I highly recommend that too. because this will show if your foot shifts down into the toe box. A proper fit, if the heel is locking properly, instep is supporting properly, and there's medial pressure on the inner wall, the foot will not migrate into the toe box. We want to avoid that, okay? You might not be able to test that in some stores, but if you do have that capability, please take advantage of that ramp testing system. Okay? When it comes to lacing of boots, there are tons of different types of lacing patterns you can find online. Typically, those types of lacing patterns are designed for modifying the fit because the basic fit is not exact, so we're going to change the lace. I prefer getting them into the right boot without having to do multitudes of different types of laces. But what I do recommend is this lace pattern. There is a section of the foot that's called the waist of the ankle, and the waist of the ankle needs to be controlled, okay? That's why you're always going to notice clasps and leather angling down towards the heel pocket. So that's an area of concern for me, especially when you're doing downhill descents, okay? So what I recommend is when you put your boots on, at the waist of the ankle, I recommend doing a simple surgeon's knot, where I'm flipping one side of the lace, flipping the other side of the lace, and locking it down. That creates a barrier so that the foot cannot slide into the toe box. After that, I'll go up through the clasps, and I did notice that I have a lot of lace to play with. I'm going to utilize as much of this lace as I can. So what I recommend is once you get to your first set of eyelets or clasps, you do a single flip, go to the next eyelet, do a single flip, top eyelet or clasps, single flip. And if you have excess, and if the clasp has enough space, I recommend going back down through the clasps until you have just enough left to bow. Right now, if you were to do this type of system, this will feel like you've almost been placed in a cast. Every part of the rear foot is now contained, okay? It's a very simple lace pattern, and I find that it secures the foot the most efficiently when the boot is the proper fit already. So lace patterns can play a part. So look online to check these other lace patterns that are available for people that need a minor adjustment. I also recommend before you do your first hike in our boots that you pre-flex the boot also. So what does that mean? Put your hand in the boot, create a flat fist, and bend the flex point. You want this part to relax before you do your first day hike, okay? Relax that area, and I also recommend if you feel any motion in the heel pocket, the heel counter in the back of all boots are typically made of a specific type of plastic. You can actually mold them a little bit and bring them in to create more of a V, and that will lock your heel in a little bit better. So I recommend squeezing the heel counter a little bit and pre-flex the boot before you do your first day out on the dirt. Okay? To get the proper fit for a hunting boot, stop into your local SCHEELS to be fitted by a boot fitting expert.